Welcome to the podcast. Now that I'm engaged, how do I get married? I'm your host, Kevin Dennis.
And I'm August Joker, co-host and brand manager at Fantasy Sound Event Services.
In addition to leading the charge at Wedding IQ, I also run Fantasy Sound Event Services, a lighting and entertainment company based in Livermore, California, that I founded over 35 years ago.
Each week on this podcast, we'll explore a new corner of wedding planning so you can prepare for your I-dos without the stress.
From budgeting to booking vendors to the day of drama.
Let's talk smart wedding planning.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? And we have the one and only Brian Franklin with us. Brian, he's with Vows and Speeches. But Brian, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how we got you here today?
Sure. Well, first, Kevin, thanks for having me on the show. Vows and Speeches helps people write their wedding vows, wedding speeches, of course, ceremony scripts. We also help with other kinds of events, everything from I've done bat mitzvah speeches, I've done eulogies and sales presentations. But generally what we're doing is we're helping people find the words that they want to say if they have trouble finding them. And if they are good writers, even sometimes people will struggle in these moments that are very emotionally charged. And the other side of the business and the services that we offer is that we provide delivery coaching. So once somebody has the copy that they like, and we give unlimited revisions, and there's no AI, so we're just we're handcrafting it with you. But once it's close to final, if not final, then we go to the rehearsal stage of things, and that's when we provide feedback on how to deliver it better. And particularly with weddings, it involves being fluent enough with it so that you can make eye contact, that you're sounding as if you're speaking it rather than reading it, and things like that. So that's the business. And yeah, I've been doing this kind of work for almost 20 years. I was in politics before this. I was going to
ask, like,
yeah.
how did you get to there? So that's kind of
I tired of being in politics. I know, kind of in the same way that most people tire of hearing about politics. I got tired of doing it. I really enjoyed it at first. I was very passionate about things, but really, I really enjoyed the idea that you could win or lose elections on 30-second ads and on technology and just being better at advertising. And I had come from corporate advertising, corporate and nonprofit advertising before that. And I always loved that piece of it. I loved political commercials, believe it or not. Yeah. And, but being in the business, I was successful. It worked out really well for me. But as time went on, I got really tired of being a part of it. And I wanted to do something else, and I tried a couple of different business ideas that never really got off the ground. And this was something that I literally fell into because I had officiated a few weddings in the past, and I had written some speeches with friends and family that knew that I had that skill set. And then I started this thing, and next thing you know, it was real, and I loved it. And it was something that, for those people listening and not looking at video, I have gray hair. And at a point in my life, I'm at a point in my life where I was feeling very stuck. And even though I was making some money, it was just like, I hated it, really. Yeah, so this was a way to escape that. And then as we got into it, it was amazing. I'm writing about love all day. I'm talking to couples about the person they love more than anything in the world, and family members about their best friends or kids or siblings. And it was just, it was rewarding every single day. You're dealing with nice people as opposed to politicians. I think there are some nice people. There are some nice politicians, but they aren't universally so.
And I agree with you about political ads, because they can either be really good or really, like, you're like, what the hell is this person thinking? So
yeah.
That's just a crazy switch up too.
Yeah, I know.
Very different businesses.
They are, but the skill set of trying to boil down these big things down into bite-sized increments for audiences that are barely paying attention, it's very similar. And a lot of the skills that I used to deploy when I was interviewing, let's say, a new client, And I was like, okay, well, tell me what you're into. Like, why are you doing this? Give me your understanding of the issues. And we go down and dive deeper and deeper into their lives and their backgrounds. That's very similar to what I do with these clients today. It's just, I'm not deploying it in a partisan way. I'm deploying it so that everybody loves it. And, but the skills are actually really similar. And I find myself kind of in this weird deja vu sometimes doing it.
No, I get it. It's capturing attention, invoking emotion. I mean, it's for different things, but all the building blocks are there.
Yeah. And if you can make a politician sound good for, a minute or two, then you can make love sound great. Really.
Love that.
It's not
a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah. But the magic is really in the interview. I mean, that's really, I think, where you can find a great writer anywhere, and maybe we may get into AI or not, but the writing piece of it is not the magic sauce. I think the magic sauce is knowing the hook of a story and knowing where to find the joke in it or the humor at least in it, and feeling or having a sense as to when a story is going to warm somebody's heart and get them feeling emotional. And those are things that I think people do effectively in politics sometimes. And I think with this, that's where we really dive in, because it's all about the interview. If I don't have a great interview, it's a struggle.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we have you here today to talk about what makes a great ceremony. So I think we have an expert. I feel very confident that you're the expert in this. But so to be silly, like, what does make a great, ceremony, and what kind of separates a memorable one from the one that just kind of checks the boxes, So what?
Well, I think the number one answer to this is personalization.
I agree.
The more specific the ceremony is to you and your relationship in your life, the more of a story that it tells, then the more people will in the audience start to get interested in what you're saying. And not just that, the emotion of the whole event lifts. When it doesn't happen that way, it tends to be one of two things. Well, either you're getting married in a church or a synagogue where the script is fairly well established over a few thousand years or whatever, or it's because somebody got lazy and they went on ChatGPT or they went on Google and picked up a template, and it's the same language that everybody's heard in every movie and every wedding that you've ever gone to and that sort of thing. And so I think that's the danger is that you fall into this generic land where people just kind of go, okay, and they're just waiting for cocktails at that point. They're just hoping not to burn themselves in the sun.
Yeah, and I sometimes I feel like people forget the wedding is about the ceremony, so they skip the wedding ceremony part of it and focus more on the reception than they do the ceremony. And sometimes I'll be at a ceremony and it's like it took longer for the processional and the recessional to happen than the actual ceremony itself.
That was my wedding.
Oh, really?
No, that was no. To be honest with you, like that, my wedding was. It was funny. My wife started to get a little anxiety as we got closer and closer, and because she just, I don't know, she just doesn't like being conspicuous in that way, right? She has a little bit of stage fright, and so as we got up there, she told our friend that was doing the ceremony, make it short. So he was like in real time. He came from politics too, so he came. He was editing out paragraphs in his head. But and we didn't even do our own vows. That's the irony of the whole thing. It was before we started the business. Some years before we started business. But yeah, that's part of it, and I think the other side of it that I think people forget to do is to have fun with it. This is this is your ceremony. It's yours. It's the hopefully the only time you'll do this. And so it should be enjoyable for everybody, including you. And I think people try and assert so much control over everything, and there's no surprises for them in it. And I try and, when I'm writing a ceremony, I try to work it out. And most times I'm successful, where they don't see the wedding. They'll see an outline. Sorry, the ceremony. They'll see an outline, but they won't see the script. And we'll agree on the I do language. We'll agree on the ring exchange. But everything else, I'm working with their friend or family member that they had already entrusted to write it, to work out the narrative, so that when they hear it for the first time, then they're feeling those emotions for the first time, that they're really laughing and they're really crying, hopefully a little bit of crying, and that way it's special for them. It's that moment for them.
Yeah.
So is that how the process normally works? You typically meet with the officiant and the family members, and not the couple, so it's kind of more of a surprise to them the day of?
So we get hired a number of different ways. Most of the time when I'm doing a ceremony, I'm working with the couple originally. I interview the couple. I might be doing their vows as well with them. So I'll interview the couple, but even if I'm not, I'm going to interview the couple, and then I'll interview the officiant that knows them to get their perspective on the couple, their voice, get all the, they may have some perspective on marriage. They might be already married in a relationship. I'm doing one where it's the dad of the groom, so he's got a lot of perspective on the whole thing, and they've known each other the couple's known each other for 17 years, so she's been around, and
oh wow,
and so there's a lot of material there. But then I'll work directly once that's done, and I've done all the interviews, and I've gotten a sense of the tone that the couple wants, and how much humor or not they want, or if there's passages or sand ceremonies or tequila unity shots. Then I'll work with the officiant directly, and then we'll be workshopping it so that they're comfortable and they get up on stage with the best that they could come up with.
I love it. So what are some of the common mistakes you think people make when writing out or planning for the ceremony?
Well, they make it too long. I mean, we talk about it being too short, but I think the other side of it is that it becomes too long, and too many things inserted, too many readings, too many people recognized. There's a certain point where the energy level, which is so huge as they come in, and then, of course, it naturally has to take, people take breath, and you started it out. But you want it to build over time. You want this thing to get more and more fun as it goes along. And it doesn't have to be raucous, but I think it definitely dies when there's too much going on and people go on too long. And so I think that's one mistake. I think another mistake, besides the specificity piece of it, is, and this goes for all of the speaking parts, whether it's the speeches or the vows, is that they will put something in there that the couple really didn't want in there. And that, they're making a joke, or they get too edgy, or too, and meanwhile, grandma's sitting right there, and now the bride's uncomfortable, right? Or the groom is, who knows? And so, I think not having a sense and a connection as to what the couple really wants and what their thresholds are for success. And then finally, I think the presentation aspect of it, I think a lot of people just don't practice it. So they get up there and they've got their face in the page, and there's no eye contact, there's no stagecraft. They don't know to get out of the way of the photo for the kiss. There's little things. There's mic placement is bad, and so no one in the back can hear them.
Yeah.
Right? So there's things like that we talk about with every one of our clients. Some of it, maybe I'm not there, I can't control it, but they need to hear it. And if they don't hear it, they're not going to know to watch out for it. And that's, I think, one of the, when you use a friend or family member, I think it's more special because it's personal, but I think you run the dangers of all of the lack of professional understanding pieces that you can run into.
Yeah, and it's funny you say you were mentioning all the other things, but another thing they forget is to tell the guest to sit down once the bride walks down the aisle.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so I've seen so many times at a wedding where the guests stand for the entire ceremony because whoever was doing it was so nervous. So anytime I'm working with a brand new officiant, I I try to tell them, hey, make sure you tell them to sit down, write it down on here because you're going to forget.
It's in every script I have.
Yeah,
Please stand up. Please sit down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because
it's and get out of the shot. Hold the mic to them.
Yeah,
when they're giving their vows, if they have personalized vows and you're the one with the mic and they haven't been mic'd up, then put the mic in their face, because if not, nobody's going to hear them. Right?
Yeah.
So that sort of thing.
But I agree with that, like writing down the actions as well as what you'll be saying, because I have a similar story, Kevin, where I was coordinating an event and the officiant, for some reason, was just very nervous about asking people to sit down. And I literally reminded him right before he walked down, and we had talked about it a couple times, but he gets up there, he forgets, he completely spaces, and I felt so bad, but I went to the back, trying to get everyone to sit, and after the ceremony, he came up to me and he said, I totally forgot, I'm so sorry. So I
Please
think
put your
writing
cell
it
phones away,
down.
right? Please
Yeah.
put your
Oh,
cell
yeah.
phones away, right?
Yeah.
And there's I saw a wedding recently where they had 60 seconds for everybody to take a picture of that, or 30 seconds. Get out your phone, do it now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Take your picture, and then we're going to put them away, right?
Can I tell you, I've seen that. I've been seeing that more and more, and it's genius, because then you get, it's like, and the officiant would start with like, hey, we're going to have a little photo op for you guys. So please, when the bride walks down the aisle and everything's happening, please keep your phones out of the way.
Yeah.
And then once it's time for your photo op, we're going to let you bring them out, but then you're going to have to put them right back away for us. And I was like, it was so genius, because then you don't have, the bride walking down the aisle with what we see anytime, like a concert nowadays or anything that's going on. Everyone, you just see the cell phones nowadays.
Yeah.
So
you have to, and I think it helps to tell them why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want you to put your cell phones away, because not just because we've hired a photographer, but because the photographer is going to take some crowd shots, and we want to see your faces. Right? We don't want to see we don't want you to block the faces of other people behind you. So there's some reasons to do this that people just don't understand. And I feel like as I get deeper into this, I realize that there needs to be more communication between the couple and their own wedding party speakers when we get, when it comes to speeches, to explain why you need to stay within 3 to 4 minutes. It's because the food's going to get cold if you don't, right?
Yeah.
It's because we're going to run out of time for dancing. It's because you're going to bore the audience, and what's going to happen if you do go too long. So you can, give the DJ or the wedding planner the permission to play them off Oscar style with some nice classical music, right? So there's reasons why these things are structured the way they're structured, but they're not always communicated to the people that need it. And I was just on the phone a few minutes ago with a bride who had not yet, her wedding's in 3 or 4 weeks, and she had not yet talked to her fiance about the length of the vows that they were writing.
Wow.
And she's like, oh, is that something I should talk to him about? Yeah, absolutely. Because what if his is like 30 seconds and yours is 2 minutes? It's going to look bad.
Yeah.
Or conversely, what if yours is 2 minutes and he goes on for 6?
Yeah, now you look bad.
See, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought of that. It just, to me, was like, oh, it's like a surprise the day of. I wouldn't think to set a time frame on it.
That's why that's why you have to involve professionals sometimes, and they know what goes wrong. We're strategists at some level.
It's funny. I don't think I had a groom once. The bride did her her personal vows, and they were absolutely, like, I was in tears listening to her vows. And then it was the groom's turn, and he's like, and the first thing that came out of his mouth was, well, I'm screwed because you were so, and it was just like, I think he was just caught off guard by the moment. Like, she did such a good job. I do not have that, I'm not prepared in that way. So
many weddings I've been to personally where I've seen an imbalance in some level, right? Between the length of it or the tone. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about doing the vows for both of them, because I can then have them play off of each other. There's a tone that's theirs, but it's still complementary, and the length is going to be right. And so you get a sense of how they're going to work, and especially when you know what the order is going to be, there's ways to to carry jokes over that sound spontaneous. And so, I think it's just worth communicating. But I've been to so many weddings similarly where people are like, did this person put any thought into this at all? I mean, I've had to save the date for 7 months. This person it seems like they just wrote it 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And they might have.
Well, and that I've heard that too at a ceremony, and even, you know, you're talking about speeches where they go, "Oh, I wrote this morning." I'm like, what the hell have you been doing this whole, you know, like,
Yeah.
how do you really in the stress of getting of the wedding day, do you think it's a good idea to write your wedding vows or your weddings, you know, as the best man, maid of honor, write your speech that day? It's like,
and that's why it's one of my missions when I'm talking to anybody is to get this to be considered early in the process, because of course we want people to budget for it, but this is something that you can do early, really early, long before you've even picked the venue. You can do this part of the wedding, and you can sit with it for a long time. You can make edits and refine it, and you can practice it and make it really perfect long before you're fighting over tablecloth covers or who's invited or whether or not we're getting the premium liquor versus the medium premium or whatever it is. And so and it's fun. It's a fun thing, and it reminds you why you love this person. And so if I can move the process from the back end to the front end, everybody's going to be happier and the wedding's going to improve for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. So we were talking about personal vows. Like, is there a way to make it where it's not too personal? Like, is there a fine balance line, or is there a way to make it like you were talking about humor? Like, what's the balance in that?
So,
or is it different for every couple?
It's different for every couple. I think from a humor standpoint, it's never all humor or all serious. I would put, you know, if it's a scale on a 1 to 10, I would say it's always going to be between a 3 and a 7, or a 4 and a 6, somewhere in there. You know, it's. I've had a couple of clients that they just wanted to be a laugh a minute, and that was a great time. It was 2 minutes of talking, so I guess it was about 2 laughs. You know, so, but I should lose that phrase really in this business.
I know that was great. I was like, well,
but at any rate, I've had clients that want it disproportionately funny, and I've had ones that lean towards very, very serious. But it always needs to be some level of lightness in it. Your relationships, if you're in a good relationship, good enough to get married, you're laughing with that person. You're having fun with that person. There's so many aspects to your daily interactions that are humorous, even lightly so. And that lightness provides some counterbalance to the heavy sentimentality of what you're going to be saying, and offsets whatever cringy cheesiness there might be on that end. And so humor every time, just it's a question of degrees, and the appropriateness of that humor. I think the rule should be, you know, don't say something that's going to make people uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And particularly your partner. But really, let's not make this a topic in the wedding. And that's where I think wedding speeches in particular, that's where it goes off the rails, because people think it's their open comedy night, and they, you know, and they want to be edgy and fun, but they don't remember that the couple have people in the wedding audience that are people they work with, people that are family, people that might be very conservative. And while they don't want to play entirely to those sensibilities, they also don't want it to be a thing. And so I think that's again where having someone like me who's worked in politics, where you take a step back and go, okay, is this something that's going to be a problem in any way? And if I'm not sure, let's at least have the conversation and check off on, are you sure you want to say this way? Are you sure it's not going to upset your sister or whatever? You know, that this is playful teasing and will be perceived as such, right? And but most of the time I'm going to err on the side of not doing something that I'm even questioning.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny as you're saying that. That's everything I've seen it go wrong is where they bring up, like in the speeches, is they're bringing up religion.
Yeah.
They're bringing up ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends.
Yeah, no.
Embarrassing childhood stories, pregnancies. I have a family member who once talked about how like who knew this could come out of Tinder, and nobody else knew that they were on Tinder, and that became it. And the bride didn't talk to her for a long time. I've heard much worse than this. I talked to a luxury wedding planner who witnessed personally a father talking about how he brought his son to a brothel in South America.
Oh my God.
And the bride didn't know.
The bride did not know, and nor did they know that they were in the same room with the same prostitute, and it destroyed the wedding. Like, wedding over,
oh no,
crying. Obviously, this is an extreme story, but I think,
well, yeah.
But the point is that people think that their wedding party speakers will exhibit good judgment every time, and I think if you sat back and you thought about it for a second, you know that if I asked you who's going to be the problem, you know who the problem's going to be.
Yeah.
Or could be. And that's an opportunity to maybe intervene a little bit and say, we've hired people to work with you and make sure that those things get edited out. I mean, my own clients that have come straight to me, I've had to say, like, let's not talk about how good she is in bed.
Yeah.
Like, let's just not do that. Yep.
Well, now those kinds of moments, those kind of moments go viral on the internet. Like, I think I saw a video recently where this groom was just really talking down to a bride during their personal vows, and she was just laughing it off, and it was very uncomfortable. So I do think it's really cool how the background in politics kind of gives you that neutral ground when being
Isn't
able
it amazing?
to...
Like, politics has made me more moral and full of values.
Yeah.
Like,
you see the other side of things.
Oddly counterintuitive, but it works and it's true. I think you have to, you hear it with the ear of the audience, right? And in some ways, I'm the audience's advocate here. I'm trying to do. I know that there are people like me out there that have short attention spans. I know that there are people like me up there that want to do comedy, but and I also know that when you're sitting in an audience and someone's not doing well up there, it gets more awkward and awkward and awkward, and you have to watch out for that. And people that, if it's not funny, it better be packaged in a way that you can move to the next line really quickly and not just wait for that big laugh that's never going to come and now the room dies. So it's fun.
Well, can you speak a little bit more on the coaching side of things? Just, how people should stand, how they should present themselves, maybe how to overcome any nerves if this is something they're not used to.
Most everybody has some level of public speaking anxiety. I'm someone that if I don't rehearse what I'm saying, if I'm speaking extemporaneously, like I just did a second ago, I will stammer, I will stutter. I got hit too many times in the head in football or something, party too hard in college, whatever it was. But I make those kinds of errors. I have verbal things that I have to edit out, the the ums, the rights, the dudes, all of it. And I'm just not that person that can get up every time and speak well. So I have to practice. And if I practice, that stuff goes away. It dissolves away. So number one thing is practice, because there's going to be a flow that comes when you read it for the 15th time that won't be there the first time. There are journalists that can read copy for the first time and it sounds like they've been reading it forever.
Isn't that amazing? But, I don't know how they do it. It just blows my mind. But
they're just really, really sharp at that particular muscle. They're athletes in that sense. But for the rest of us, when you read something for the first time, you're reading it word by word, and there's a choppy, dancey quality that I hear now, like right away. And it's not the same, but even 3-4 times into it, when you've worked with somebody and and they're going through it, you can sense the difference. But most of my coaching doesn't involve that, because that's something you can do on your own.
Mhm.
Most of my coaching involves the timing of the words and the way that you're presenting them from a dynamic standpoint and from a tone standpoint. So when you get to a soft part and a sensitive part in the thing, you know, you can do what my voice is doing right now. You don't have to necessarily lower your volume, but you soften the edges of how you present the words. It's a little slower. It's a little bit more breathy, but not necessarily lower in volume. But when you're talking, when you're telling a joke and you tell it like you're at a bar,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You know, when you're saying something funny or happy or excited, then you have to act excited. And people tend to just, if they're too busy reading the words again, you know, and they're not thinking about this aspect of it, then it comes out flat. And you need it to be dynamically different, both in tone and in volume and in content. And all of those things have to work together. And that plus perhaps some movement, you know, a little bit of movement, but not taking your mic away from your face, and so that it doesn't sound like you're out here all of a sudden. And I had that. I saw somebody present something the other day where they were talking and talking and talking, and all of a sudden they were like, "Oh," but those are typically the things that we work on. Sometimes there will be a line where there's a joke or a word where I just want them to pause right after it for comedic effect, or before it, and slow it down and then hit them with it. And so there's things like that we'll work on. By the time we get done, though, I'm not saying they're professional speakers now, but sometimes they're great, and they went from terrible to great because they just needed to unlock a little bit of knowledge, and then they just took right to it, and got it and went with it and ran.
Is it like more thinking it on the lines of confidence? Like it's you're building up their confidence,
of course,
to deliver the speech. Yeah.
And you don't always know when it's good, but sometimes you do. And when you're feeling it, and you know that I like the way this is written, this represents me, and now I know how to deliver it, and I'm feeling I can hear myself do it. And I can see, you start seeing yourself succeeding up there instead of being terrified and being embarrassed.
I was going to say, I feel like the delivery and the coaching is I feel just as important as the content of the speech, because if you can't deliver it properly, then it's not going to land the same way.
It was such an afterthought when I first started doing this, when I thought it was all about the writing, and I threw in the delivery coaching almost as a value add. And then I wound up doing more of it than I ever thought I would. And it became a really important thing. And I got client feedback, and you're absolutely right. It's now a major part of what we're pushing as part of this package, because you need both things to really feel good about it.
All right. So have you noticed any shift in how couples approach ceremonies in the recent years? And then are there people moving away from certain traditions or bringing in new traditions?
I think and I've only been in the industry for 4 years now, so I haven't seen it all. I mean, I can only speak to what I've seen outside, as a guest in other weddings, but I do know that we talked about personalization. I think that's become a major part of it. But I think the other part of it is that traditions are going out the window, right? People sometimes say, hey, what's the order of the speakers? What does that have to be? It doesn't have to be anything. I would here's how I would do the order. Take the best speaker, put them last, right? Put your worst speaker maybe second, or first or second, right? Because they'll be terrified by going first. But I think traditions are going out the window, in the sense that, look, if you want to cut the cake, that's great, right? If you want to do the things the way that they have been done before, and I appreciate the importance of that for a lot of people, great. But if you don't, you shouldn't feel shamed by it.
Yeah.
And you should feel empowered by it. And I think more and more couples are doing that. And I see that all the time. Right out of the gate, when we first started the business, one of my first clients, they wanted to do a tequila unity shot. And I said, well, that we can certainly do that. I found one online that was, scripted, and I customized it. But then I was like, I thought this would be a lot more fun with Fireball, right? I could make I could make a whole thing out of Fireball and the burning desire and heart, like the whole thing, and cinnamon is kind of good for the kiss,
More content there, yeah.
Right. And it was just more, it just was funnier to me, right? So I wrote up a Fireball unity ceremony that clients have loved, and I don't tend to reuse a lot of things. I like to try and keep them all unique, but there are certain lines and certain things that that are just too good not to reuse. And that, as silly as that is, people love it. I set it up as like this ancient ceremony.
Well, yeah, I think it is the uniqueness. It makes it feel like that ceremony is theirs, and it's definitely a fun piece that will be talked about by the guests and just for them for a long time to come.
And to your point about social media, like it might wind up on social media, and you don't want to see it recycled too much. But so I customize things where I can. The other thing that I've seen more and more of is the use of more contemporary quotes for reading. So like song lyrics and
Dr. Seuss is what I've been hearing.
Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have a client right now that's really into Star Wars. But I don't know when this is airing, but by the time it's airing, I think this wedding will have happened. And I am. He's really into Star Wars, like since he was a kid, and so I quote a great ancient philosopher, which it turns out to be a Yoda quote.
Yeah, that's great.
So, but I don't call out Yoda. I just mention a ancient philosopher, and then it's really
recognizable.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
that's really cute.
And you mentioned Star Wars. I had people are, I think, customizing now, even with like the music. And one of the most memorable weddings I ever did is we played the Imperial March, and the groomsmen all walked in with their sunglasses on.
I love
it. But it was just because it was all soft, pretty music, and then all of a sudden it was dun 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 dun. It was like, and just the guests were like, "What's going on?" And they all marched in, and I just. I think making it personal, even with music and all that kind of stuff. So.
And the other thing you're seeing a lot more of now is coordination between the vendors. I think there's a lot more communication between vendors. And I'll give you an example. If I knew that you were doing that, and it wasn't already communicated to me that Star Wars was a big thing for them, we can make sure that there's something in the speech that leads into what you're doing. So, you might have cues for me and I might have cues for you, but there's information that can be shared now that might inform the design or the production of the wedding. And I personally get so much information up front. And another reason, by the way, to do this early is because I'm going to get stuff that a lot of people won't. And at a time where you might inform how you put this thing together, or the fun things that you insert into it. But I've seen a lot more coordination than ever particularly between DJs and the wedding designers and the officiants even, and that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot that we still can do, and I'm floored by the level of creativity and design in this industry. It's truly, truly amazing, some of the stuff you see.
We are very creative in what we do. So I will pat our own back as an industry. We really, I mean, it's just, sometimes we pull off some of the most amazing things, and it's just like, wow, we really created a memory or a moment for a family or a couple or whatever it is. So. Yeah.
And that's why it's why I really enjoyed being a part of it, because if you think about it, in a 4-hour wedding, we're 17%, 18% of the time that is the wedding are those speaking parts. And so let's make those things just as great as the optics and just as great as the music.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So you mentioned Google. We or a little bit or AI, ChatGPT, that kind of stuff. And as someone that's been going to a lot of weddings, I've heard the same speech. The put your hand over hit. The last time you'll have the upper. I mean, I've heard all this stuff over and over again. How
For those that don't know me, yes.
Yeah,
Don't ever say
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, how do they come to you with a bunch of Google AI stuff, and then you're like, scratch and we start over, or how
Sometimes
has it
you'll,
affected you? I guess.
Well, the AI stuff, sometimes I haven't seen much of it, but I will get people's initial drafts that will often just use as source material, but not as the basis or structure of what we're doing. But and it's useful. It's very helpful to have that stuff. But AI is there's no comparison right now. It may be someday, but
Yeah.
like I said, a lot of the work is in the interview, but even in the writing aspect of it, you can tell when something is AI. An experienced reader or listener can hear it, or see it or hear it. And AI is not going to tell you what not to say. That's one part of it. It's not really good at jokes or timing. It's not particularly great at emotion and flow. It can mimic it, but I think, again, when you're writing something, you're also thinking about, like, is grandma going to like this? Is this going to be okay? Or, is she going to, or is the sister, the bride, going to enjoy this joke? Or is this kind of or is my client trying to do a backhand compliment here? And, that something like that. You're always on guard for those kinds of things. And I don't know that AI could see that yet.
No.
I believe someday it might. But at that point, we've got bigger problems because we're probably at war with the robots, and But I think this is such a human moment, and while technology helps me because, like, I record things and I transcribe them and whatnot, I think you need a human on the other side of it, helping you edit it and helping you deliver it, and that's how we keep this thing beautiful and moving and keep people laughing and crying and feeling confident, because a lot of it is just psychology.
And there's nothing more frustrating than hearing the same thing over and over again.
Oh, because, and I've heard stories where someone's given the same speech twice at a wedding. Like, they literally got up, and one person after another, and said the exact same speech that they found on the internet.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Oh my gosh.
It is terrible. You would think that the second person would have not done that.
Yeah.
But they were just path committed at that. They had nothing. They couldn't get up there and say nothing, so they just went with it. It was incredible.
Dang. I ended up giving a speech at my friend's wedding this last summer, and it was the first time I had done it. And, I thought, being in the industry, there would be some things I could avoid and whatnot. But I remember going to TikTok and trying to find some kind of speech inspiration, and it's exactly what you guys are saying. I'm like, it's the same jokes over and over again, the ones I've been hearing for years. And I'm like, I thought I would find some kind of originality. And honestly, when I got down to it, just sitting down and thinking about the couple is what really helped me write it, and staying away from anything on the internet. So
yeah, and it doesn't even have to be the same jokes. It's like you hear the same heartfelt sentiment. It's like someone saying, "I love you to the moon and stars," right?
Yeah,
and I get it, but we've heard it, right? Tell me what it is you love about that person. Like, really, tell me what they do that makes you love them, and what why you love them, and that's where the fun is.
I agree. All right, do we miss anything? I think we covered a good chunk here, sir.
Oh, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think we did it. So how will our audience get in touch with you to help them with their ceremonies?
Well, I believe you'll put it in the links of the episode in the show notes, but also if you go to vowsandspeeches.com, that's VOWSANDSPEECHES.com, or go to Instagram, Vows and Speeches. It's the same. You're going to get to me and my email, phone number. Send us a note, book a free consultation. We're happy to talk to you about what you're looking for.
Well, I have two daughters and a son, and I'm going to be reaching out to you to help.
I can't wait. That'll be a lot of fun. You got it.
Because I'm always thinking I'm going to be funny. Yeah, no, but I'm just like, after you saying that, it's just like, I want to be funny, but I also want to be heartfelt, but I also don't want to sound like an idiot.
It's not, and you want this to be a great moment. And I think even the people that make mistakes, they didn't intend to make mistakes. They wanted it to be good. They just didn't, they just thought they overestimated their ability to do it. So
yeah. All right, sir. Well, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your expertise. It was absolutely amazing, and you gave our audience a lot to think about, especially when it comes to the ceremony, because I think it is one of the things that they overlook in the wedding planning process. So I'm glad you're out there to help them. So
great to be here. Thanks to both of you for having me.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brian.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married podcast.
Brought to you by Fantasy Sound Event Services.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. Please get in touch with me or August if you have any topic you would like us to cover.
Or if you're struggling with your wedding planning, please be sure to submit a question to podcast@fantasysound.com.
I encourage you to check out our other episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a fan, we'd love if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a review.
It helps others find our podcast so that they can learn from our guests too. And to everybody listening,
happy wedding planning!